course, those topics are down in print, but we can deviate from those topics and talk about what we would term as hot news items. And one of them is, as of today, January the 24th, I believe, is the outbreak of the coronavirus in Wuhan. Peter, could you give us a bit of info on that?
It's a really big issue, actually. It attracts all the global attention. Even if the World Health Organization hasn't yet declared as a global emergency public health crisis, but I think it will do it sooner or later. Could be tomorrow, could be several days later, because it triggered a tremendous pandemic in China already. Millions of people, like considering a city of 11 million people, were shut down. And later on, the whole province of Hubei, which has 60 million people, they basically all shut down the whole province because the virus cannot be effectively controlled. It's spread, outbreak currently.
So you're saying the whole region is about 60 million people?
Yeah, the Hubei province.
Yeah, so that's a lot of people.
That's
people
of the whole
double
France.
California. Yeah.
Almost double Canada.
Yeah, almost double Canada.
Yeah.
Having said that, Peter, I think the questions that we need to address is, given what is happening regarding this virus, do you feel that the government in Beijing has been transparent enough and proactive enough in dealing with the outbreak of this virus?
Obviously, they did very poor in transparently communicates the public community, because at the beginning stage, that was dating back last December, several cases were reported to the local public health authority, but later on people find it the local government wanted a carve-out in order to create an atmosphere that the whole society is in harmonious way to organize, to hold a local conference between its province-wide, or so-called number 13 provincial People's Conference held in Wuhan. The conference lasted only 1 week. During that week, even if people already find new cases affected by the coronavirus were reported to the various public authorities, but the government cover up.
Okay.
They announced that there is no new cases, new patient was found or reported.
Right.
Ending up after they so-called successfully held the conference, they announced the coronavirus will spread from people to people.
Mm-hmm.
On the contrary to their previous announcement, let's say less likely to be infected by people and people. So it triggered kind of people suspected that the government may cover up more serious issues. They're much too people surprised. 2 days later, the Hubei government announced a shutdown Wuhan, a city with 11 million people.
Mm-hmm.
Globally wide, people never find us, even foreign government, never adopted such a shutdown whole city to prevent a certain virus outbreak.
Yeah, I think you've brought up an interesting point, because I heard in Canadian media that we would find it very difficult, or in the United States, for example, to shut down a city the size of Toronto or Chicago or even Vancouver. So these are drastic measures that the Chinese government are doing. And I think, how do you think the people on the street in China have responded to these outbreaks, and how do you think they have responded to the efforts of the government? Have they been able to get to this in time, and what do you think would be the reactions from an ordinary Chinese person?
Outrageous. Many reactions are understandable. Like first, heard they even doubt their own ears. Is that true? Correct?
Yeah, yeah. So you're saying that the Chinese government has been more reactive than proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Poor reacting rather than those proactive
yeah,
way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that'll lead me to the second question. In the history of health scares in China, and the one that I think a lot of people can remember is the 2003 SARS epidemic. Do you feel, or would you specifically know if China has been able to maintain normal health standards, which would be asked of China in terms of following along the protocols of the WHO?
Yeah. Under most circumstances, technically speaking, with the rapid growth of China's economy, it has all those resources to follow the standardized international protocols in answering those public health crises. But the tricky part is the way the communists govern the society is pretty different from widely acknowledged international practice. So, like the information transparency.
Yeah.
Those local government, they all report to the central government. The central government usually put those important issues in front of those so-called Politburo meeting. Then only the final decision could be made. The standing committee of the Politburo, 7 guys. Out of the 7 guys, Xi Jinping had the final say. So we think in the most recent Wuhan crisis is all those various different levels officials, they are waiting for the final say from Xi Jinping. Unless President Xi Jinping say something, they won't propose their own solution. It tremendously pulled back or wasted time to tackle the spread of the virus.
So I think one thing that you're saying in no uncertain terms is that it's when you have a power base that is so centralized, it is very difficult, or it makes it more difficult to handle national crisis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because why those local officials or local authority, they didn't do effective respond to the outbreak of the coronavirus? They always listen to the guidance from central government, and the central government waiting to hear the voice from President Xi Jinping
From above. Yeah.
Because in the past 7 years after Xi Jinping came into power, one important thing he emphasized numerously is, all the guys, you listen to me. You must obey this principle. That's why this virus outbreak, no proactive way you want to anticipate the government officials can show you,
Yeah.
unless they hear the final guidance from
But
Beijing.
generally, if I can add on that, generally the rule of thumb is that crisis management is generally predicated on past crises. So if you've had a crisis in 2003, the SARS, it would be easier for you to crisis manage a following epidemic. So what you're telling me is, has China learned from past epidemics to be able to attack this current epidemic in a way that will lessen the effects on the general population? Has China, in fact, learned from past epidemics to be able to move forward, not only to help the people of China, but also to uphold the rules of the WHO?
Certainly, China and its people already learned a huge lesson from the disaster SARS, dating back 17 years ago. But as a great philosopher, Hegel said, the greatest lesson from history people learned is people never learned lessons from history itself. In China, because the government ruling style, you will not respond to the public health emergency first time. They always to the hierarchical bureaucratic system. This time, to make things worse, is the current Chinese leader Xi Jinping. The guy has a very strong personality, unlike the previous President Hu Jintao. When SARS spread in China, Hu Jintao was the president in Beijing, right? And his ruling style, due to his personal personality, is pretty different from
More low key.
Xi Jinping. Yeah,
More low key.
he tend to listen to his advisors,
Yeah.
or other colleagues. Then we found, as soon as he found several ministers in the government want to cover up, he fired them. Thus, we already know in 2003 in Beijing, he fired the Minister of Public Health in China, Mr. Zhang Wenkang, and fired the Mayor of Beijing, because these two guys, people widely recognize they have their responsibilities in covering up the news.
So inaction led to a reaction, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So this time, now it's a matter of fact, those government officials in Hubei province, particularly in Wuhan, they cover up a lot, tremendously. Then it brought up the serious consequences, the wide outbreak.
Okay.
Unless you adopt the shutdown policy, you cannot expect to control it.
Yeah. Well, now that the epidemic is breaking open, how do you see this ending? I know this is pie in the sky, but how do you think this can end in terms of China moving quickly to put a cap on this and make sure that there's a minimal amount of damage, not only to the people of China, but China's image, the economy of China, because this is unsettling, and this is instability that the markets will not respond very favorably to.
Of course, the capital market, the stock market in Shanghai and in Shenzhen already showed its worry about the outcome of this outbreak of virus, because before the New Year, the last trading day in China, the index plunged 2%, more than 2%, and it's not the end.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how people will see it, because so far, even those specialists cannot give a precise forecast of what's going on over there.
Yeah.
But one thing we can tell, already jeopardizes the recovery of the Chinese economy.
So this is a big test then, one of the biggest tests outside of Hong Kong for President Xi Jinping and his administration.
Yes,
very big test.
I think it's a fair comment, and also many observe it observer, they are not sure if President Xi Jinping can survive after this tremendous
That much.
challenge.
That much.
Yeah, because it will test his the effectiveness of leadership, and under the circumstances, like most of the current government officials, they also have a kind of a mental set is they wait to see the top leader, which way you go, I just follow you. On the one hand, it shows how he successfully control all those power in his hand.
Right.
But on the flip side is, you sure bear all the responsibility.
Exactly.
And all those unfavorable social result comes out, you will be the one to be blamed.
So in essence, this test is the cherry on top of the cake. What you're telling me basically is that the higher ups in the Chinese government have not been proactive enough, have been deceitful, have not been truthful, and are basically victimizing the Chinese population at a crucial time in China's history on the world stage, also for big major events where China will be on the world stage, and I'm talking about the 2022 Winter Olympics north of Beijing. Would you not agree?
I think we cannot attribute all those on those people's shoulder. Rather, I would say it is the current system or the way the communist government they govern this society has its deep-rooted problem. This is like we want to emphasize, because the system itself not only like cheating its citizens, they also cheat their superior, their leaders. Then those leaders we're talking about, even including Xi Jinping, their decision processes should like always lag behind, which was actually happened, or which the situation required them to the quick response. They always like showed a slow response.
Yeah.
They only give you a impression like it's a reaction, not proactive.
Right, not proactive.
Because the system doesn't work.
Yeah.
They already lose the function of automatically proact to what will happen. That's why we said even though we have those internationally widely accepted protocols, but it never works in China due to its political system.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it is, in essence, very deficient.
Yes.
They're big on big ticket items, big projects that require a lot of propaganda. But when push comes to shove, if you get my meaning, the micro crises are badly handled. Do you not agree?
Yes, I agree with your comment. Which I want to share with you is the current system is only quite effective in one way, just to shut people's mouths. Because on the 1st of January of 2020 in Wuhan, those policemen, they detained 8 people, charging them speak rumors through internet or through social media. So this current regime only, or has been for many years, decades, or ever since the communists came into power, they are quite effective in shut people's mouths, not creating solutions to resolve the social crisis, including the spread of the coronavirus.
But I think a lot of people would agree, Peter, that that becomes problematic because you can just put problems on the back burner for a limited amount of time. It's not sustainable. You learn from your mistakes and you move forward. If China fails to do that, then that puts everyone in a very compromised position. Do you not agree?
I agree. That's why we always say the essence of all the social problem is Chinese people lack fundamental human right. In this case, in Wuhan case, they were robbed the transparency. They were robbed the knowing what was happening. The official media never tells the truth. That's why it triggered the mass pandemic.
So if you hold that thought, if one was to speak freely with someone from mainland China, then I'm sure that we would hear that they are probably at their wits' end, or that at the limit of their patience for accountability from the government.
Yes.
And I think once they start traveling and having access to other news sources, I'm sure they must be questioning things in a very dramatic and forthright way, where they are having a thirst for answers. Do you not agree?
Agree. Totally. Yeah. If people have like freedom of speech and they can use various media to tell the truth, tell what's really going on over there, they can force the local government authority to take reaction, or to more use a proactive way to handle all those public health situations. But as we think, those ruling group, they always choose the easy way for them to govern people, to shut your mouth instead of to resolve the problem.
Right.
And control the virus is not easy, but control people, they are very good at learning from Soviet Union, from Stalin.
So they're very good at macro, but they are deficit in terms of micro.
Micro, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's always big picture, right?
Yeah.
Big on the big picture, but when push comes to shove on small problems that can become big problems, they are deficient.
Yes.
We can agree on that.
Of course.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so I thought this would be a good interjection in our project on the coronavirus, which will be, and I think Peter would concur, that this will be a real test on the administration of President Xi Jinping. And as Peter alluded to, this could very well could be the beginning of the end for President Xi Jinping if he is not careful. Do you not agree?
I agree to some extent, but I also want to say it's also a big test of the current social system ruling by communist government. Not only Xi Jinping, even if Hu Jintao or previous Jiang Zemin, they are still in power. They could not do a lot better than Xi Jinping is, because the system also controls them. To some extent, those leaders we mentioned, they also part of the sacrifice of the system, which lag way behind the international
Norms.
Yeah. With that, while our conversation happens, I heard the confirmed cases in Toronto, in North York Hospital.
Yeah, just now.
Yeah, so it become part of the Canadian social problem.
Yeah.
Which imported from China, because the confirmed patient is from Wuhan, a guy in his 50s.
So in essence, what you're saying is that right now there's tremendous pressure on China to get with the program, to get with the program and deal with this in a way that is completely transparent, because they are now dealing with an event that could have repercussions for the whole planet.
Yes.
And the buck stops on the desk of President Xi Jinping, right?
It's a time for him to show what China always
Claims to
be the international responsibility.
Exactly. So if you're a country that prides itself of having 5,000 years of civilization and then some, then the onus very much on China is to do what's right.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
time,
Yeah, it's the time. Yeah, it's the time. It's the big test. It's the big test. Yeah.
a crucial moment.
It's a very
because,
crucial moment. Yeah.
So far as we've noticed that Europe in France, Middle East in Saudi Arabia, and then in Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam,
Yeah.
Singapore,
Yeah.
Philippines, also in East Asia, in Japan, in South Korea.
They're all going to
All
be looking.
confirmed cases.
Yeah, but
in the
but
States,
now,
in Chicago, in
now
Toronto.
they're all going to be looking at China.
Yeah.
They're all going to be looking at China. Get your act together.